Shane, you're up next. Shane is going to talk to us about tokenizing nutrition for hydroponically produced fresh produce in sustainable communities. Thank you so much. We're running a little bit behind time, but I think we're good. We'll have to reduce our breakout session time a little bit, but we'll just keep an eye on that. So Shane, if you can try and keep it to under 10 minutes, please.
Get going. So hello everybody, and thanks for the time, and Craig and Liesl for hosting us. First, just a little quick story about the background to this. About 2 years ago, my folks decided to semi-retire and travel up to Polokwane and start to do some aquaponics stuff. My mom grew up in Zims on a farm, so she had some experience from a long time ago, but she hadn't really put her hand to farming for many, many years. But it was kind of a great adventure and also an opportunity for them to try and do something different and live out in the bush. What concerned me, though, was that you're going to spend a lot of money, you're going to build a whole lot of stuff, you're probably going to make some mistakes. And given that my mom and dad weren't really entrepreneurs by training, the idea was to build and grow stuff and then find some customers. And I remember having quite a few conversations with them saying, have you got a market? What you're going to grow? How much are you going to sell? Anyway, long story short, they started the journey. They made lots of mistakes. Eventually, they found some experts and got training on how it all works, and they started the journey. What I then did is I engaged my daughter, who's at university, who's passionate about nutrition, and we started saying, well, where's the demand side? How do we create demand for farmers who are doing something interesting? And really, we just looked at it. There's a massive problem in our country. Just the amount of malnourishment is astonishing, again, pre-COVID. And then if you look at poverty, literally up to 75% pre-COVID of our households in this country are at risk or living in a poor situation and poverty. So we have a massive, massive problem. So if we then move to nutritional views of it, what's quite shocking as well is the food that the people get access to is just not healthy. So at the moment, on the left-hand side, most people on average, their diet comprises of 13% of vegetables. And it's literally about 20% too low from what it should be. So there's a big gap. So we kind of said, well, if we can create demand from poor households who need access to fresh vegetables and nutritional food, perhaps we can do some local connecting of the dots between local growers and local households who need the food. And that's where the idea came in. And then I'd been doing quite a lot of work around the blockchain space and distributed decentralized marketplaces and ledgers, and started going, well, actually, with that technology, it's quite straightforward, in fact, to be able to create a peer-to-peer network of people trading in goods. And then in order to make that trade, to facilitate that trade in a simple way, we started looking at the concept of tokenizing nutrition and how do we create a value that you can trade across the ecosystem very quickly. So, conscious of time, really what we looked at it is to say we start with the demand side. I think it's much like Brett was talking about. It said we're starting with the little guys and not the big guys in terms of trying to aggregate demand. But the idea would be to create a very simple app that takes the orders on a weekly basis of fresh vegetables from households. And then what we do is through the nutritional tokens is we understand the people in the household, their ages, their activity, their genders. And based on that, we calculate how many servings of vegetables they potentially need and map out the demand. Obviously, you want to select different types of vegetables, but we look at the demand. And the idea is very simple. If you've got 1,000 households with 4 people living in it in each household, that's quite a big demand. And on that basis, you should be able to go and negotiate with several tunnels in the aquaponic hydroponic space to be able to grow the regular vegetables that are needed. So again, that was the idea. And then again, using local community. If you think about the old days of milk cartons, you know, if you've got a vegetable carton that the growers take the produce to a central processing hub around the corner, they package everything together for the household, they give it to the local transport providers who drop it off at the house and pick up the waste, and it just becomes that circular economy. And again, in the middle, what you're doing is facilitating the matching of buying and selling of the vegetables, as well as the processing capability. Economically, each tunnel, to be viable, you probably want about a 300-400 square meter tunnel to make anywhere from $750,000 to $1 million plus turnover, which would allow you to amortize and pay off the cost of the tunnel, as well as make a profit and pay some salaries. And then there's quite predictable demands that you can get out of that. So when you just start looking at the number of poor households, the ability to build multiple local capabilities, much like the co-op stockfile conversation that we were talking about earlier, but then starting to aggregate that in regions and nationally. If we can get that right, then we can start to provide the big guys predictable, sustainable food and goods. We've done quite a bit of work mapping it back to the SDGs, and there's a big value proposition around the social and environmental impact. So if you just look at aquaponics and hydroponics, you know, you don't need a big piece of land, you don't need a lot of water. There's options to create alternate energy, and you can effectively be organic to a much larger level than the majority of farming. And then the amount of production that comes out of, if you compare it to, say, land and just traditional planting in the soil, and obviously the reduction in water is absolutely, its factors different. So big opportunity around doing that. We've done the initial work around it. So over the last couple of years, we've gathered a lot of insight in how long does it take to plant something, what kind of outputs, you know, what's the seedling process, how do we afford to build a tunnel in a lower income versus a high commercial area. So we've done quite a bit of work looking at with my mom and the tunnels there, really using it as a research bed. And then on the reverse side, looking at the demand side of it. So yeah, what we have is an early stage venture. We've done a lot of modeling, we've done a lot of experimenting on the aquaponics side, and where we are now is actually looking for some of that grant funding, importantly, but also some fellow entrepreneurs or founding partners who'd be interested to come and work with us. If we can create 1,000 or 10,000 or 50,000 tunnels across the country, it's very doable, it's very achievable, and it would make a massive difference in terms of feeding the poor, but also creating jobs for the poor, and also creating a lot of nutritional value and health. So yeah, that's the background of Nutriponics.
Awesome, Shane. Thank you so much. Any questions, anybody?
I ran fast for you, Craig.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Jody says, great work, Shane, lots of wins here. And I know Jody's busy with something that we can definitely leverage into what you've done, Shane. So awesome stuff. Well,